Today, two celebrities faced a judge because they allegedly tried to buy their children's way into some of the top schools in the country. They're just two of the 50 people who allegedly took part in the scheme. Paying a university official to admit your son or daughter, it's just illegal. In the days following the bribery bust, Secretary of Education Betsy Devos spoke about how students need to be considered by universities based on their merit. But does that give all students an even playing field? Joining me right now, Dr. Ronald Mason Jr. He's president of the University of the District of Columbia. Doctor, you wrote an op-ed about all this. Weigh in here. Tell me what you think about this.
Well, so the gist of it was it's almost impossible in America to have a merit-based system because of three practices that characterize our daily lives. One is wealthy white privilege, one is white advantage, and the third is black oppression. And because of that, the top 10% of the population, which is 60%, in the country we're about 60% white, but in the top 10% it's about 90% white. Mm-hmm. And if you assume that talent is distributed at birth, not based on race and class, then it's clear that opportunity in America is.
Talent is distributed equally at birth.
At birth, right,
yeah, okay.
But not according to race and class. But when you look at how it goes through the talent development pipeline, education, by the time it gets to the top of the pipeline, 90% of it is white, which means that about 30% of the people up there are not there because they're talented, they're there because they were born there.
Yeah, you're saying any way you sack it, the process is weighted against minorities.
Yeah, well, yeah, America is really.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, you need to redesign and rethink the way we educate our people in this country, because the companies here, any company you talk to in America will tell you that they need talent, right? And the problem is they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to maintain these practices that drive America, but at the same time, that's exactly what makes it difficult for talent to rise to the top. And so, if you look at our strategic plan, the equity imperative, we actually have a goal in there to create what's called an equity academy, to find a neighborhood and connect the community all the way up through a bachelor's degree, and then design a pipeline that's specifically designed to deal with these challenges that black and brown and poor kids have to get a degree.
Weigh in on this, if you will, okay? A lot of people claim reverse discrimination when you talk about giving some points to black and brown and others who are trying to get in. What if it were based on income?
Would that historically disadvantaged? Look, anything helps.
No, not even historically disadvantaged. Poor white kids.
Poor white kids? Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. Poor white kids.
Well, but it's not based on income. That's the first piece, right? And then second, we have federal programs that do some to help pay for the cost of education.
Right.
But when you're talking about the top 10%, right? These are schools where the students get the best jobs, they get the best opportunities, they get the best paying jobs, and then they end up in the best neighborhoods with the best schools, and that cycle just repeats itself over and over again. And so, we really have an education system. If you look at education as a way to identify, extract, and develop human potential, we've designed a system that really only does that in the top 10% of the population.
Yeah.
And so it recycles it up there, and everybody else is trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, you're underscoring a lot of what we heard. Those that already have, privilege are gaming the system to even get advantage over the other.
Which is just a double insult, really. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Free education at the college level, say starting with UDC. Should DC students be able to go to UDC college tuition free?
Well, it would be nice, but it's a complicated question because we're partially free already. Our workforce programs are free to every district resident. Our community college has a tuition of $3,500, and Pell Grant is about $6,600 a year. And so that covers that. For most of our students, that's basically free. And then at the bachelor's level, it's $7,000, and that's among the least expensive in the country.
Got to be. Okay.
Especially when you put in Pell. Now, from a financial point of view, it's about a $30 million piece of our budget that we run the school off of.
I've covered all the struggles that UDC has gone through, and you're doing quite well now. And kudos to you. What do you need, though?
Well, we need goodwill. We need time. We're getting better every day, we have a friend we think in the mayor and the council, and they give us enough to keep moving forward, and the more they give us, the faster we can move forward. That's pretty much how it works.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, and come see us often.
I look
just
forward
down
to
the street.
it. Yes, sir.